dropped in the Q&A box. And it's interesting. It's coming in from Victor Dakupo. And it says, it would be interesting to do a poll on the sector that has been being the most audited by RAMFAC. I want to think that is probably the banks. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so absolutely correct, Wale. The banks have been, if I can use the word, permit me, the victims of RAMFAC. I think this all started, like I said, around 6 years ago in 2014. And when RAMFAC started with the banks, it was first because banks actually have two dual roles. They're also collecting agents for FRS and Nigerian Customs Service. And of course, they're also taxpayers in their own right. So RAMFAC started and said, as in your role as collecting agent, whereby the public actually remit funds to you, which you, on behalf of these agencies, and you're supposed to transfer to their funds. We want to be sure that you have indeed remitted into, the FRS's account and, all the monies that the public have indeed paid over to you, and that you also remitted it within the time period that our contract provided for it, because oftentimes maybe they're supposed to remit, banks are supposed to transfer those monies onward within 24, 48 hours. And if you hold on to the funds beyond the agreed timing, it's also a contravention of your agreement with the revenue agencies, and there might be penalties for it. So they said, we're actually monitoring your ability that you've discharged your duties appropriately. But from there, they actually went into that, we also want to look at your books as a bank. As a taxpayer, your obligations to the tax authorities in terms of charging VAT on your transactions, deducting withholding tax. Have you indeed done that? And have you remitted those monies on? Which is clearly the purview. The second part of it is clearly the purview of FRS. The first part of it, yes, it's arguable that they are trying to confirm all monies have indeed, be accrued into the federation account. But on the second part, they have gone ultra their powers. And yes, the banks have been the victims, and they've actually borne the brunt of RAMFAC. But in recent time, now we've seen that there are indications that RAMFAC has moved into other sectors, the ENR space, energy space, the consumer market space. Well, I don't think there's been any news yet of any audits that have been completed on this. So I think it's just a new thing that is beginning to happen. Thank you.
I mean, I can indeed confirm that RAMFAC has actually moved into the ENR space. Now they're focusing on stamp duty, and I'm sure they're probably going to expand the instruments that they use to audit. But interestingly, a question here from Abayomi Makinde, which is very interesting. And it says, what can ICAN or CITN do to tax consultants used by RAMFAC and other government agencies to carry out this illegality in court? What can ICAN or CITN do?
Okay, let's first of all thank you to the caller, Abayomi, for that question. And the question is, first of all, you've used two terms, the illegality. And I think that's one of the things as taxpayers we need to define, or we need to actually take on strongly. Right now, until a court determines it is potentially illegal, but it has not been certified as illegal. So that means that we need to first get that verification out clearly. And then in terms of tax consultants that are being used by RAMFAC, well, so long as the provisions of the RAMFAC Act enables them to use consultants to carry out their work, then it would not be deemed illegal. We're aware that many of the tax authorities also have provisions in the acts that set them up, like the FRS and the others, and they can use tax consultants to actually enable them, where they see there's a shortfall on staffing, resources, and what have you, to actually execute their work. So maybe the issue is not so much as using tax consultants. Of course, there's another thing if you're a tax consultant and you represent taxpayers, and then you want to go to the side of the tax authorities to also represent. There's a conflict of interest, and there are lots of issues on the morality and appropriateness, but it's probably left to your conscience as well to judge you. You may not have statutorily done anything that is legally wrong. So the issue of tax consultants is not in itself is not an inappropriate thing to do. But in terms of the legality is what we need to establish, and I think that is where taxpayers or bodies of taxpayers, because I know individual taxpayers are often shy away from confrontations. We need to have bodies of taxpayers who can take this to the court of law to actually have a scrutiny and review of the provisions of the Constitution and the RAMFAC Act, and to determine the remits of the powers of RAMFAC and whether it extends to the audit or investigation of taxpayers. We don't think it extends to that, but we need it to be defined by the court of law so that we have the basis to move forward.